All right, we are live on all platforms. Hey y'all.
Good.
What's up, y'all? We are back with episode 2, our second live of Real Talk, Real Growth. Y'all know this is the show that we come live every single week to talk about some real conversations and give you guys some real value. I'm Miles the Millennial.
It's your boy Rex Howard Jr.
And Coach Lauren J. Hey y'all.
We're excited to be back again this week. This is going to be part 2, a follow up from last week's episode because we only got through like half the questions. It was that intense, it was that powerful, it was that impactful that we had so much input for the audience we couldn't even get through all of them. So we're going to continue part 2, which is how misconnection equals to disconnection, right? Misconnect equals disconnect. So I know that the last time, Rex, we had a really great conversation. You were kind of spearheading it with the questions, and you had about 5 more questions that you wanted to hit us with today. So, guys, before we hop into those, I want to remind everybody, if you're watching it, make sure you like, you share, you're subscribing, you're sending it out to your platforms because we have so much more value that we are going to give to you all. And just enjoy the show. Make sure you leave your questions in there. We're going to answer them today.
Absolutely. And before we absolutely get just diving straight in, I want to warm the people up a little bit. Man, let's share a win for the week. So, Coach, what's a win for you this week?
I had a couple of good wins. So I just hired on another person for my team. So that's definitely a win. And I've got another one, but I'm gonna wait until the ink dry good before I tell the whole world. But another big win in the pipe for me. So definitely excited. This has been a good week.
That's good.
It's amazing. How about you, Miles?
For me, I got some proposals sent out. So I'm excited because proposals mean you're about to get some answers on some money, right? So you know if you need to redirect, if you need to negotiate, or if it's a great yes or no, whatever it's going to be. So I love getting to this stage because this is where the rubber meets the road. Also, have pretty much gotten over my sickness from last week. So excited to be healed and healthy in body, soul, spirit. So those are my wins.
God is good. God is good. No, KTX, what it is, what it is.
Hello.
Um, a win for me this week, man. God is just amazing. As y'all know, like I solidified the LLC. So we running. I opened up the business account yesterday. So that's super dope. And I just had a session with a teenager that was um didn't want to show up. He didn't want to come to the session. His mom had essentially said to him, the only way that you can do the things that you want to do moving forward is if you sign up for therapy. And at the end of the session, completely won him over. He told his mom he was ecstatic about the session. He can't wait to come back. So, anytime that happens is always a win for not only me, but for the parent and for the kid, because, they now are receptive to new information and they found a safe space to share their information too. So that's a huge win that happened tonight.
I love it. I love it,
Yep,
man.
yep, yep. So, that being the
Hello.
case, we got some people coming in. Hello, hello. Appreciate y'all for tapping in. Once again, like, subscribe to the channel, bring a friend to the channel, send this to somebody that may need it. Today, we're going to be talking a continuation of last week's conversation on how a misconnect can lead to a disconnect. And I'm going to go ahead and get this bad boy started by the very first question. Question has, how can past experience, like family, previous relationships, shape the way men and women approach trust in relationships?
Mm. I think it's how everything is built, right? When you come out, you have no reason to not trust people. When you come out the womb, you're a young kid. Like, what reason do you have not to trust people? To expect that people are going to say and do, what they say they're going to do, that they're going to provide for you, take care of you, and then you get to a point to where, slowly but surely, you start to realize that everything isn't what it seems, right? And in that, you either learn to be gullible and continue to be hurt by it, or you build up a wall and different defense mechanisms to protect yourself from being hurt, right? And it gets harder and deeper the older you get and the more serious the circumstances are that you go through. Because I even think about where I'm at in my life now. I'm 26 years old. I'm nowhere near the middle of my life yet, but even in the amount of time that I've lived, I value that time so much to where bringing somebody close into my circle is too important and valuable to me. For you to betray me or to violate my trust would be something that hurts significantly. um so I'm very careful with that. And so when you think about whether it's mistrust in relationships, romantically, friendships that betray you, family that just doesn't act like how family should act, it can set you back years before you ever want to open yourself up in that area again, because it's like, what's the point? Why would it be worth it for me to trust somebody else when I gave this person all of this in me, and they've set me back in life so far? So it's everything to me.
That's good. What about you, Coach?
Man, it's interesting because I was having this conversation just last night. And then you saw me kind of like looking around on my desk. I was trying to find oh, there it goes, my devotional.
Mhm.
So this is something my therapist said to me. And then it was in my devotional like last week, and I felt like I low key felt like I was being attacked. Okay. But it said that you can only love, you can only love in which the depth that you're willing to be hurt. You can only love at the depth in which you're willing to be hurt. And a lot of times we think love is just this feeling, and love is absolutely not. Love is a sacrifice. And you've got to be willing to give up something in order to gain everything. And so, when you are talking about being in a relationship and dealing with guilt, blame, or shame in the relationship, a lot of times when people can't get past what has hurt them, then what happens is they start to demonize themselves. So, what my heart hears when someone says, well, I'm worried about the relationship with you, my heart hears, you're worried about you,
Mhm.
Yeah,
but you just made it about me because
Yeah.
that's easier,
yeah,
right? It's
Yeah.
easier to give this look of I'm accounting for you when the truth is you're self-preserving for yourself.
that's good.
That's good.
That's real good. So let me add to that. I was having a conversation with a young lady today, and she said that because she's so used to people letting her down, she's became hyper dependent, right? So, and she says, I've been dating this one guy for a minute. We've been staying together. Well, he's been staying with me, but I don't ask him for anything, right? And and she said, I remember he was laying beside me, but I was on the phone with my mom, and I was telling my mom how I was short $200 on the ring. And I was giving her all these different breakdowns of how I was going to make it happen. And the whole time, my man was sitting right next to me, but he never offered or said anything about it, right? So she got off the phone, and she looked at him and said, you weren't going to say nothing? He was like, you never asked me.
Mhm.
He's like, you didn't even give me an opportunity to say yes. You didn't give me an opportunity to say no. In fact, except for coming straight to me, you called your mom when I'm the man in the house. And she was just like, well, because of my past and because I'm not used to people showing up for me, I would much rather vent. And I want you to hear me venting and hear what I need and show up for me versus me directly asking you. Right. And I told her, and I said, well, do you see where the problem is? She was like, well, yeah, I see now because I didn't give him the opportunity to show it for me. Right. And I said, and that's what tends to happen. Your trust has been broken in so many relationships. Now you don't even allow the person that you sleep with, the person that you're supposed to trust, to be there for you, to show up for you. And if you are his partner and you can't ask him for help, whether you need a hug, whether you need a kiss, whether you need some money, if you can't ask for that, then what are we doing in that relationship? What kind of relationship do you even have? So the question says, how can past experiences shape the way men and women approach trust and relationship? Well, we bring in that hurt, right? I still got this fresh wound from so and so breaking my heart. So now either I'm going to try to beat you to the punch or I'm going to bleed on you and make you feel like you're doing something, even though it's not you that did it to me, it's that person. So it put these barriers up in between you and this other person, and now they have to fight and pay for the wounds that was caused by somebody else. And I think that right there is how past wounds or past relationships can affect how people approach relationships.
Right.
I just feel like, why are you in my business tonight?
Man.
Uh, like what kind of one accordness is this? Um, because I literally had this conversation yesterday, and I had to say, like, um, I, what do you need?
Yeah.
Right? What do you need? Like, what are you looking for? Because it was like one of those conversations where the person was really projecting, right? In a sense, really projecting their own struggle of like, instead of saying like, this is where I was dropped, it was more so about what are you going to do to make sure that, or even alluding to the fact that maybe I should be willing to try to help you get safe with you. That's not really my job.
Yep.
You could be a client.
Literally.
Be a client.
Literally.
But you say that, Rex. I remember you brought this up on the podcast one episode. You said that it got to a point for you because you had been let down by people so much to where you would ask for help through venting.
Yeah.
That was your strategy. It's like, I'm gonna just tell you about all these problems,
Yeah.
piling them on. Oh yeah, I got to get to such place. I got work at such time. My car's not working. This is that and that. In hopes that that person's gonna say, "Well, I can give you a ride, or you want to
Yeah.
borrow the car real quick? I can
Yeah.
lend you $5 for it." You know,
Yeah.
because you're scared of the rejection
Yeah.
of I'm open, because the thought, once you open yourself up to ask, you're opening yourself up in this person's head to be hurt, right?
Yeah.
Because if you tell me no, now it's reopening that wound of all the other times people have let me down in the past, when the
Yeah.
reality is this person isn't letting you down,
Yeah.
right? They didn't sign up and say they were going to do something and then they're not doing it,
Right.
but you're placing a responsibility on them of being able, like you guys said, to solve generational problems,
Yeah.
right? Things that you have dealt with for decades. And this person has to step up and be Superman or Superwoman and read your mind, understand your triggers, and be able to peep what you're saying but aren't saying. And that just isn't fair. Me and my girlfriend have talked about that multiple times, because she is that same way, where she's hyper independent because she's had to go through life taking care of things on her own,
Right.
right? Her family calls on her and leans on her and her sister for a lot of things. And what me and her had to get to a point in realization is, one, I had to recognize where that was coming from and understand that, look, this is a part of her natural responses right now, and it's going to take time and patience for her to develop out of that.
Yeah.
But then for her to also understand that, hey, this dynamic that we're operating in because of this mindset that you have is not helpful to him being able to be a partner for you.
Yeah.
You're setting an unrealistic communication and expectation that nobody can live up to without deteriorating themselves.
Yeah.
Because it feels like, dang, I can't not mess up. Because the second I do, now you're shutting down. Now you're saying this is why I can't trust nobody, or, oh, forget it, I'll just do it myself. There's nothing worse than that,
Yeah.
right? Especially as a man, I'm trying to do my best, but I might not have the perfect solution for this circumstance.
Yeah.
I want us to work together to figure out what that is if I don't have the perfect answer. But if I don't have the perfect answer, now I'll just figure it out on my own. Damn, bro. So
No.
it's real. Go,
No.
Rex.
So no, I'm sorry, me to cut you off, but go ahead.
No, I'm done. I'm done.
Okay. And this is my last point. Then we'll go to number two,
Mhm.
unless Coach got something to say. It boils down to expectations versus agreements, right?
Mhm.
Expectations is especially unmet expectations, but I may say for my partner or feel for my partner, I want my partner to make sure the house is tightened up. I want my partner to be able to read me. I want my partner to know when I'm pissed off and know when I need my space. I want my partner to if she comes over to my crib, I expect her to ask me if my dog has been taken out and all these type of things, right? So when I get home, if the dog had been taken out, I'm kind of pissed off.
Yeah.
If the house is dirty, I'm already upset, right? If I come home and the house just don't feel like a home, then I'm upset. But that's just an expectation that I have. But the agreement says, this is what I need from you. I'm asking her, and she's saying, yes, I can make that happen. So we both come into an agreement. Agreement prevents you from being disappointed because you now have open communication with your partner. You've let her know what you expected. She let you know her expectations, and you guys agreed on something together. And now that we agreed on something together, if you don't show up or if you fail to show up, then we can have that conversation. But if I'm expecting you to do something that I haven't verbalized to you, then I'm setting myself up for disappointment. And that's just going to create further conflict within a relationship. So, man, I felt like Miles felt like that was a hot topic. Now we've had to really get into the
Hey,
show.
we look. I'm keeping that one for later.
Say less. So, part two, question number two. Why do men often feel misunderstood by women when it comes to emotional expression? And follow up to that is, how can men and women work to better understand each other's emotional needs?
So, top of that, um, a lot of times it's because of the way men express themselves or the
Yep.
lack thereof. One of the things my very best friend Angela Helm always says, and Rex, you just met Angie. She always says, "When a man talks, listen."
Mm,
And the truth of the matter is this: a lot of times when we're listening to the man, we're listening honestly to figure out where do we fit in this, or how does this benefit me. And so sometimes it's the lack thereof in his explanation, and then the lack of active listening on our own. And so if
very
you're
true.
always trying to figure out where do you fit, then you'll be wondering, do you even belong? And now you didn't even hear the need or the cry that he had um for said thing. The other thing is, a lot of times we can be very dismissive, especially as strong-willed, hyper independent, recovering women. Um, we can just be dismissive, like whatever. He's
Yep.
just he's just and we will dismiss, but we dismiss because we haven't gotten accustomed to holding space for ourselves. So I always tell people this: you can't expect a person that's at war with themselves to be at peace with you. I'm gonna
Yeah.
repeat that one more time. You can't expect someone who's at war with themselves to be at peace with you. So
That's a
that
bar.
becomes a very big issue when you're trying to express yourself to a person that can't even hold space and grace for themselves. So they
Yeah.
don't have it.
Yeah.
That's
That's good.
Go ahead, Miles.
No, I was gonna say that's good. I'm gonna start with from a man's perspective what I've realized about women, some women, not all women, and then I'm gonna say what I think is an even bigger root. Um, I think that a lot of times women they're listening until it gets tough on them, right? Until it becomes defensive, until it becomes triggering. Then as soon as that happens, they're not prepared to hear that, right? Like women ask for honesty and transparency and to hear your feelings about certain things. But then when you tell them like, yeah, what you did here was selfish, or what you did here, was rude. What you did here, really hurt me or made me not want to trust you or whatever it is. When you say those things, it is very tough for a lot of women to be able to deal with that accountability. And a lot of times, and it's something that you talked about, Coach, what happens is women who are not prepared for that, they don't fight fair. So then the first thing that they do, Coach, like you already said, they gonna go bring up something else in that moment. Well, what about all these times that you did this? And it's like, but that's not what we're talking about right now.
Right.
And this isn't the time and place for that. And so when a man feels that way, it's like, see, this is why I don't express myself. Right? You sit here and say you want a man that is open with his emotions, but when I give you these emotions, you're not ready for them.
Yeah.
They scare you. They turn you off completely. You don't really want an emotional man. You want somebody whose emotions only benefit and make you feel comfortable. If those
Mm,
emotions come at expense of how it's going to make you feel, you're out. I can't deal with this, right? And so I think that that's the part that women struggle with. But if I'm going to go deeper and I'm going to really get to the root, and this goes back to something you said, Coach, but I'm going to flip it on the men. You can't have peace, expect peace when somebody's at war with themselves. A lot of men are at war with ourselves.
yeah.
And we have not done the emotional work to truly understand ourself. And so the biggest thing that I has helped my relationship succeed is when I got to a point emotionally to where I realized how emotional I actually was as a man. Oh, I was the biggest person preaching men are logical, women are emotional, right? Till I don't even think it was therapy. Therapy was part of it. Actually it was a major part of it. When I started going through therapy, and he started pointing out, he's like, "Does that not sound like an emotional response?" I'm just painting it through the surface of logic.
Yeah.
I'm using the logic as a protection for me to then project my emotions out, but it don't feel weak. It doesn't feel, like I'm being emasculated or operating outside of what a man should do, right? And when I realized how emotional I was, I started doing research on it, and I realized that all logic is rooted in emotions. What? That blew my mind. That blew my mind. And I really started looking at psychology, and it's like you have to realize the pathways that happen in your mind when thoughts and feelings come in.
Yeah.
Feelings are the basis behind what your thoughts are going to be. If your thoughts are this is the course of action I need to take in a dangerous situation, it's because your feelings are telling you based on past experiences that this is going to keep me safe or this is going to cause me harm.
Yeah.
Therefore, your logic, your decision making is rooted in your emotions,
Yeah.
right? When I realized how men think by this logic and operate by this oath that we're supposed to be logical, I realized that that's the problem. Because you don't realize how emotional you are, you can't empathize with her. You can't understand why, when you're just coming off with all these solutions, but there's never any emotions behind it, why she doesn't receive it. You also don't realize how you are sensitive as all get out. You might even be more sensitive than your woman is.
Mhm.
Because when she says something to you to hold you accountable, you can't deal with that at all. My brother,
Yeah.
you will come up with anything and everything to get around that situation and not have to face it. And you won't do the same thing that women do. What you'll do is you'll blame it on something else. You won't blame it on her, but you'll say, I was working this whole time. But brother, you made an agreement, like you said, to say you're gonna be accountable for this. So when she's telling you you're not showing up and doing your part, how I'm not doing my part? I've been working, I've been this, but we had an agreement and you didn't do what you were supposed to do. But you're only looking at it logically. You're not thinking about the emotions behind it, about the lack of security that gives her, about the way that causes her to sit back and realize, dang, I got to operate in my masculine more than my feminine. Like,
Yeah.
we're just more emotional than we think, and we don't want to admit it.
That's amazing. I think the only thing I'm gonna add to that is the question says, why do men often feel misunderstood by women when it comes to emotional expression? And I believe that well, one, men don't really express themselves in the first place, but when they finally do express themselves and they come from a place of hurt and they want to talk to their partner automatically assumes that they feel the way they feel because of them.
Mm-hmm.
And it now becomes, oh, you're mad at me for something versus let me hear this man,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then also it kind of stems from if I've never expressed myself to somebody and I finally do express myself, this is the second point, and you use that my weakness against me, it's going to be hard for me to show up and express myself again,
Yeah.
right? And if then also if I express myself to you and you show me that you can't handle my emotions, then that it's also going to lead me to not doing it again. So it's that if you are raised in a society, if a woman was raised in a house where a man wasn't expressive at all, right? And then they finally get a man that is expressive, it's uncomfortable for a woman to even sit in that because they're like, what the hell do I do with these emotions? Right? A perfect example had a client. He said, Rex, for years my wife wanted me to be more emotional. She said, you're too hard. You don't share enough. You're not emotional enough. And he said something in me broke one day. And then for the following weeks, I started sharing, I started expressing. And she said, babe, I'm not gonna lie to you. I can't handle that.
Mm-hmm.
So can you go back to doing what you used to do? Because it was better when you didn't put me into your emotions because now you let me know your fears and you let me know your insecurities and it's making me feel less secure in myself and then what we have because you're not secure in yourself. So, and then you hear stories about men having these rational thoughts, like with themselves, like, do I tell her about these issues that I'm dealing with, or should I just go to the homies for it? Because if I tell her, she's going to feel like I'm not handling my business or I don't have a solution for it, right? As much as we would love to share these things with our partners, sometimes we feel like we can't because that shows too much weakness. And the last thing you want, especially if you have a young woman that you're dealing with and she still has a father in life, if you share something with her about something that you may be struggling with or dealing with, and she feels insecure or less secure in that moment, and then she starts going to her father for help and not to you as her partner for help, then that right there even makes it even more disconnect between you guys. So I think it's so many levels to deal with, and all three of us gave really good points as to why there's a misconnect.
That
So
driveway conversation is real.
no, it is. It is. So let me ask you this though. This is the follow-up question. How can men and women work to better understand each other's emotional needs?
Mm.
A soft tone turns away wrath. Proverbs.
Yes.
And if you study the life of Abigail in the Bible, Abigail was the wife of David. But before she was the wife of David, she was married to Nabal, and Nabal was a fool. His name meant foolish in the Bible. And Nabal was definitely foolish acting, but it was her negotiating, her humility when David came to kill Nabal that saved Nabal from himself.
Mm.
And so when we say, how can we do it first? We have to, one, know that our tone matters. I always tell people words have power, but your tone keeps receipts. B, can't take it personal.
Yeah.
That's one of the 4 agreements. We'll be teaching on that tomorrow night for my webinar for couples. But one of those 4 agreements from the book, The 4 Agreements, is you can't take it personal.
Yeah.
And then hold space. One of the things I tell my couples all the time, and this is one of the things that I do all the time, is thank that person for their vulnerability,
Mm.
Yes.
because gratitude changes attitude.
Yeah.
And no one is required to give you their vulnerability, especially if you have shown that you're not emotionally safe. If someone is giving you guilt, blame, or shame, they're not emotionally healthy and they're not emotionally safe for you. So when someone gives you their vulnerability, before you give any other feedback about what you think and why you think it, thank them for it, because
Yeah.
he could have walked around with it and just cheated on you. Could have
Mhm.
walked around with it and became alcoholic. He could have walked around with it and smoked weed until you couldn't think no more.
Yeah.
So be grateful for that.
That's amazing. I'm going to share two quotes from Myron Golden from the link you shared this morning, right? Um, he said, the biggest mistake in communication is thinking that it happened, right? And then the follow up was, your communication is the response you get, right? So in communicating, you got to know who you're communicating with. Then you have to know what you're trying to relate to them and understand that if they're not understanding you, then you haven't communicated well enough,
Mhm.
right? So maybe you're not speaking their language. Maybe if you're trying to uh, be contemptuous and speak on a level that makes them feel less than, maybe that's your fault. Or if you're speaking from a sarcastic tone, thinking that they were supposed to understand you, they shouldn't understand you, then maybe that's the problem. But if I clearly say to you that, hey, my feelings were hurt when you said that, when you used that tone with me, and that made me feel disrespected as a man, right? And before she responds, if she says thank you for sharing it, but then she also relays back that message to you. So you felt disrespected when I raised my voice at you. Because I absolutely. Now that we are both on the same page, because you haven't, I said something, you repeated what I said back to me, you validated what I said, and now you can respond to it based on what you're willing to do about that. And that's how we're going to be able to move the needle forward.
I love it. I think y'all have hit everything. The only thing that I want to add to that is have grace.
Mm,
That's it. Because everything y'all said, that's the exact strategies. Like those are the steps to get it done. But I just want people to remember that it's going to take time to change behavior.
yeah,
You
absolutely.
guys are coming into a relationship as, whole people that were built, before you even met. And as you've come together recently, you've now formed even more patterns of communication that may be unhealthy. And so working through those while you're with somebody, that is a total different process than when you're single and you're working through it on your own. You can have as much patience and mess up as much you want for yourself. That's different. But when somebody is right there with you, every single time that you are trying to learn a new pathway and you result back to the old one, you're hurting that person when you do it,
Yeah,
right? And that person has to have grace for you. And you have to have grace for them. It has to go both ways for you guys to, like you said, and that comes back to that gratitude. You have to appreciate the fact that they're trying. When you really hold effort at a higher standard than the result, you end up getting the results. It's kind of the recipe for anything in life, right? It's what who you be, right? As Myra Golden said,
Who you be being.
produces what you do, and then what you do creates what you have.
Yeah.
Right? Be, do, have. And so if they're making a decision to be somebody who's a better communicator, and then they're making active work and effort to practice doing that characteristic and being a good communicator, they will become a good communicator.
Yeah.
But you got to have grace and appreciation for the steps that lead to that result, because too many times people are in the process of making those changes, and whereas 100% of the times they were going to respond this snappy way, now it may only happen 6 times out of 10.
Yeah.
Now you can sit there and you can't appreciate that and be like, it should happen none. I'm not tolerating none of it. And then you walk away from somebody who was on their way to true growth. They're really making admirable progress. Or you can be the person that says, you know, baby, like I know that you ain't perfect at it yet. But the fact that you're even trying, and I have seen so much meaningful improvement. I remember a time where you used to do this all the time. I love and I appreciate that about you. And that's all I care about. Just keep working at it, because you're going to only get better. And I appreciate it. I see the work you're doing. Have grace. That's all I got to add.
Validate.
Yep.
Mhm.
That's good. So let's take a moment to pause for a second. Do we have any comments?
We've had
We got some popping. Where you want to start at? You want to start with IG?
Oh, I don't see it. See, on my side, I don't see anything.
I know Miles can get in and out. Mine will come up at the top.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I'll say the IG ones. Let's see. Mr. CSW said, y'all are talking good here. Purposeful Blend said, that's real, bruh. Kane said, Rex, you speaking wisdom.
Yes, sir. Got the guys tapped in.
Spiritual designer. Yeah, it's about 3-4 guys in there.
Yeah.
We're looking for the spiritual designer said we're looking for a feeling. This was in response to why women can receive that communication sometimes. She said we're looking for a feeling sometimes too as women.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then they said that's true, stuff like that. We haven't had any questions, but if you guys have questions, make sure you drop them.
On our Facebook and our YouTube, we had Anus. Don't know if it's a question, but it was definitely a statement. I'm gonna drop it up here at the top. It said, I don't understand wanting to get back with someone after they cheated. That kind of love to me is dumb. Oh my God.
Yeah, that's it can go both ways.
I mean, yeah.
Definitely go both ways.
Talk about it.
Yeah.
We don't have to talk about it right now, but we can
Yeah.
talk about it sometime.
Yeah, definitely added in. And then Ashley Nicole said wisdom, and she reminded us you didn't give the opportunity to show up for you.
That's good.
Yeah, so that's pretty much what we have from our YouTube family and Facebook family.
Man, we appreciate y'all for listen. Continue to ask questions. Continue to leave comments. Share this with your people as we keep going on. So, next question. I think this is gonna be really good. How does mindset around success and career goals differ between men and women, and what impact does this have on long-term relationship planning?
This is just giving in my business. So for men a lot of times the way that they decide their success is absolutely tied to what they're doing for a living and how much money they're making. Okay.
Yep.
When a man does not have a vision for his life, or the vision that he has is not happening, he will be very irritable in the relationship with you. And it has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with the discontentment that he is experiencing, because he has held himself to the standard of a man that don't work, don't eat. He's held himself to the standard of we ain't got time for no broke man. He didn't held his standards to all of these things. And so all of these, what he's trying to do is try to take control of what's already controlling him, because fear is a connection and first cousin to control. So the way a man provides, protects, and pursues is very, very important to him, especially if he is a high valued man. That's a topic for a different day. So that is a big thing for women. The way we look at it is we look at it as our key card to be chosen by high value. or high net worth. Because we feel like I have an MBA, I have more degrees than a thermometer, I have this job, I have this and this. So we feel like it gives us reasoning, and it also validates why you should choose us. But I'll land my plane here for the people in the back. Men do not choose a woman based on her financial status, or even um, what we're projecting you're going to do financially in your career. Men choose women based on safety.
Yeah.
They choose women based on trust. They choose you based on what money can't buy, only time can bring, and it's never on sale at Walmart.
That's good. That's good. So I had this thought come over me last night while I was working out, and it's perfect time to mention it because Lauren, you just touched on it. And I'm gonna go deep in this. When a man doesn't know his purpose, right, he cannot find fulfillment in anything, right? So let's talk about the different levels. A man doesn't know his purpose or isn't in his purpose. One is going to mean that he's not being led by God. If he's not being led by God, then he's not submitted to the right thing. If he's not submitted to the right thing, then he can't have anybody submit to him because he's not even worth submitting to, right? Also, if a man doesn't know his purpose, then he's not going to be a good husband. Why? Because he can't find fulfillment in cuddling and kissing and just always having sex or always being laid up, because his mind is focused on how can I go get this money. She want to go take these trips, but I ain't got no bread. These bills are due, but I'm looking for her to pay for them because I'm short of my end. A man that's not in his fulfillment or doesn't know his purpose isn't a attentive father, because how can I enjoy spending time with my kids when I can't even feed them? How can I enjoy spending time with my kids when they can't look up to me as a role model? Like when I'm talking to my daughter and I'm thinking, what kind of man do I want my daughter to be with, or as a husband? And if am I that man, right? So like it's hard to find that fulfillment. A man that doesn't know his purpose is a man that bounces around from job to job because nothing just seems to fit right, right? The he can't grow in the business. He feels very complacent. He feels like people don't understand me. He doesn't like to be controlled, doesn't like to be told what to do. He's not in his purpose, right? So if a man doesn't have purpose, a mission, he doesn't know what he's supposed to be doing, and he just can't lead. His life is off kilter. Miles Monroe said one of the most important things to a man is not his wife, it's his purpose, right? Without purpose, a man feels and lives a life of meaninglessness and purposelessness. He also turns to addictions. He also turns to porn and masturbation to cope. He also turns to depression. Not gonna say turns to depression, but it can lead to depression. And these are also the men, it's sad to say, but that turn to suicide. Because if I'm not meaning anything, if my doing doesn't produce anything, then what am I here for? Right? So when a man doesn't know his purpose, it's completely different. Now, mind you, I can't speak from a woman's perspective on that, but I can definitely speak from that man's perspective. It don't even feel right to date when you don't know your purpose, because if you don't know your purpose, you don't know what type of woman you need in your life to help pour into you and help you get to the next level. So you don't even have discernment. So I'm I'm done there. Sorry, went on a little rant.
Baby, you done gave it. Is there one? We got the collection plate. Drop his cash app. Just giving cash app. Sow a seed.
Right.
Nah, that's the truth, Rex. Coach, y'all both y'all killed it. Um, only thing I can think of is this, man. Before Adam was given Eve, he was given a job,
Mm, mm.
right?
We can make them go. Yeah.
The Lord told Adam that his job was to name these animals, right?
Yeah.
Adam was at work doing his job and doing his job well. And then the Lord said, okay, it's not good for man to be alone. And he gave him Eve, right? When Adam was in alignment with his purpose, right, and in his role as a man, everything was going swell. When he got out of line with his purpose and his role with God, that's when things went bad. I don't know if we said this last week, but I know I've been talking about it so much. But it's like sin didn't come over the world until Adam ate of the apple. The Bible didn't say anything about sin coming over the world when Eve ate. It was once Adam ate the apple, and he didn't. His job was to say, "Hey, Eve, look, you done made this decision." He was supposed to stand tall and follow what the Lord said, even though the temptation around him, from the person he was closest to, from an earthly perspective, what was strong. He was supposed to stay obedient and on his purpose. And so I just think about that from the perspective of a man. When we're not in alignment with God and we're not submitted to God and we're not obedient to God, sin will be all around you and it will consume you.
Yeah, that's
Right.
good.
And I've lived that in my personal life. So I know all too well the differences that I see when I've gone on this journey of submission. Right. Every area of my life has gotten better since I've chosen to submit to God. And that goes with your purpose in this world, because ultimately people always ask what's your purpose, and what's going to be the role, the way that you're going to get there. From a spiritual perspective, your purpose as a believer in God is to spread his message and bring more people to him. That is your purpose. How it is carried out is another thing. CJ Stroud said this the other day on an interview. CJ Stroud, every time he gets in front of an interview camera and they ask him about the game, the first thing he says is giving all glory to God, right? He makes it clear. And they ask him, he says, football is the thing I do, but my purpose is not football. My purpose is to bring more people to the kingdom of God, right?
Good.
So I use football as the platform to do it. And so I want the fellas to realize this: when you talk about career, when you're talking about money, when you're talking about all these things in your relationships, don't look at any aspect of what you're doing in the tangible as your purpose. Your purpose is to bring people to God. And so long as you're in accordance with that, I think that your relationship with the women in your life, whether that's your sisters, mother, your wife, I think all those things fall in line. I can't speak from a woman's perspective, but the one thing I do know is, especially women who go on a route of being like really determined and independent and going to get it, like they have to take so much of their identity kind of off the table, and put it in the background, and put this armor on to walk into a male dominated world just to win, right? That becomes a difficult thing once they start dating, to then be in a relationship with a man and say, how do I relinquish this control that I've always had to hold up in these rooms?
That's good.
So that's the one thing I'll say I noticed with the women.
That's real good.
I'll say this before Rex moves us to the next thing real quick. Rex, you said something really powerful, and I had to write this down. When when a man doesn't find fulfillment, he'll settle for fun.
Yeah.
The end.
That's good.
Yeah. Yeah.
We got a
No,
question.
literally. Go. What's the question?
No, go ahead, finish, Rex.
No, go ahead. What's the question?
The question is from Purposeful Blends. What happens when you constantly hold on,
When
when
you're
you constantly
constantly
sees you
when they
as the problem?
oh yeah.
I guess they're saying, what happens when your partner constantly sees you as the problem instead of finding a solution together. This
You
goes
know
back
what? This sounds like last week.
a little
That's why
bit.
he asked the same question. So,
He
what
might have.
happens when your partner
Yeah,
constantly sees you as a problem, except for looking for the solution?
yeah.
Um, well, you once again, I think to said this on the podcast. You got to ask yourself: is there any truth in this?
Mm-hmm.
The thing that we're looking at, is there any truth in this? Is there any area that I could fix it? Is there any area where I could show up different? Is there anything that I can change about myself to show up for you better? And if there is, then you fix it, right? But then you also ask the other person, is there anything that you could do different? Right? But you have to acknowledge it. So let's just say the problem is um you say to your partner, I don't like the way you talk to me. And your partner says, I've always talked to you like this. What are you saying? And you say, well, it used to didn't be a problem, but now I find disrespect in it. Well, you can't expect me this other partner. Well, you can't expect me to change because this is who I've always been. Right. So now we can see two things. One, as the person that's saying this stuff, you used to deprive yourself. You used to allow this person to get comfortable with disrespecting you, right? But now you're trying to be more assertive and say, I don't like this. You want to put your foot down. So you've addressed the problem. You said your part to it. I've been depriving myself. Now it's your partner's turn to make a change. Are they going to change, or are they going to remain the same? If you're with a person that's willing to remain the same, even though conflict has been brought up because of it, then you know this may not be a good fit for you. But if you have a partner that's willing to hear you, that's also willing to say, you know what, although I have gotten comfortable with speaking to you this way, I know that you feel disrespected by it now, so I'm going to work on changing my behaviors.
Mhm.
Now we're both working on solutions. So I hope that answers the question in that scenario.
Yeah, I definitely think that it did, and I'll land the plane right behind you. It goes back to purpose. Even when a woman doesn't know her purpose, and she doesn't know her when she doesn't know what she's supposed to bring to the table, she'll always be in question. A person that's in question of themselves will always question you. And
Yeah.
so it's letting you know what the heart is dealing with when they're constantly questioning you. And so at that point, sometimes you have to disengage because sometimes people don't know that they're the problem until they're the only ones at the house.
Yeah.
Facts. Until you got to sit with yourself.
Hmm.
Goodness. The only
Yes.
sometimes people don't know that they're problem until they're the only one at the absolutely. Because now you're thinking to myself, dang, well, the last relationship ended this way. The new relationship ended this way. This my mom and them said this about me. My sister and them said this about me. The common denominator in all of my relationships is me.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, that is the thing that freed me and allowed for me to get to where I am now. I sat on at my counter and I said, God, what areas of my life do I need to change? Right? And I had a conversation with an ex before I got to this new relationship, and she said, Rex, you seem to be very superficial now. You don't go surface level. It just seems like you're dating to date and not dating for purpose. And she was like, I don't know. I've only seen this through social media, haven't been able to talk to you. And I had to evaluate that. Like, you are absolutely right. When I sat and I thought about it, so I wrote down, if I had to say every reason why my relationship ended, but I couldn't blame my partner, what would I say? The pride and ego of me said nothing. I'm good. But when put the ego aside, put the pride aside, I wrote 2 to 3 pages worth of information. I'm like, no, I'm not good. This is why my relationships haven't been producing fruit. When I become a better person, I can pick better. When I become a better person, I can communicate better. When I become a better person, I can lead better. When I become a better person, I can facilitate and I can sit in something longer. But if I don't work on these things, then I can't do it. And it reminds me of the verse that I had this morning, and it says about the axe, that the axe is dull and I think it was said lack sharpness. It said strength will work, but skills will bring success. So
Mm.
in other words, if I keep hitting at the tree with a dull axe, it's gonna take me longer to knock that bad boy down. But if I add to myself, if I develop myself, if I get more wisdom, if I get more knowledge, if I have more mentors, I can sharpen my axe. So except for working harder, I can work smarter. And that's exactly what we have to do to fix ourselves.
Yeah. And all I would say, Rex, that's it. And that's why I say the answer to bro's question is this. It could be one of two things. One, maybe the communication between you and your partner is what's getting in the way of a person who does want to change, but they're just not hearing you. Y'all are speaking two different languages. But if you're trying your best to communicate to her in a bunch of different ways, then it goes back to what they're saying. And this is why this is one of my very few like non-negotiable things that when I'm dating somebody, I gotta see. And that is the ability for this person to admit when they're wrong and be willing to work to change.
Yeah.
That is a non-negotiable for me because throughout the course of life, not just in the course of a relationship, you will be required to change if you want to grow. You
Yep.
shouldn't be the same person that you are at 25 when you're 35 and 35 when you're 50. Life is supposed to change you. Life is supposed to impact you. Life is supposed to grow you. So you have to really see, did I get in a relationship with somebody who is incapable of seeing their wrongs and putting in the work to change?
Yep.
And if you are, then like they said, this might be a sign that you need to separate yourself from the person. I have a problem with arguing. Like I'm a very big debative like person. It's just natural to me. That comes from some childhood traumas of not feeling like my voice was heard. So now that I got a voice, I'm gonna make sure you hear me, and that's something I've been working through. But one thing that was told to me a while back was only a fool can argue with themselves, and that goes exactly back to what they're saying about sometimes you got to leave a person be by themselves. Sometimes you just gotta let them sit there. Okay, I've told you this as many times as I can, as many ways as possible. Now, I think you got to go out into this world and see what this life is like without me. for you to, figure out where you're going to go from here. But I can't continue to hold myself back and hurt my heart waiting for you to change, and it's not happening.
That's
You can't
good.
love that person into changing. I'm gonna tell you that right now.
You can't at all. Do we have any more questions?
No, I don't think so.
None on my side.
Okay, cool. So we have 8 more minutes. What we're gonna do is have one more question answered, and then we're gonna close the bad boy out. So, last question. Um, why do you think men tend to communicate more through actions while women often seek verbal affirmation in relationships?
Who want to go first?
I will.
Go.
Um, I think, and I said this last week too, and I'm gonna keep saying this because once I learn the information, it's important for me to continue to share it.
Mm-hmm.
Women were raised off of face-to-face intimacy, right? Whenever you were given dolls, you're having tea parties, you have something to cuddle with, you're playing house, right? Everything that you're doing is face-to-face. If you scrape your knee, you got somebody in your face. Oh my goodness, how are you? How you feeling? Can I kiss it? Can I make you feel better? What do you need? Right? There is always face-to-face communication, emotions, feelings, affirmations. Everything is there, right? Even if you're doing something wrong, it's always being told in the face versus men were raised off, boys were raised off side by side intimacy, right? Meaning, what can we do together, right? You ask a little boy about his best friend, he may say, "Little Johnny, why is Little Johnny your best friend?" Because we play football together, right? Me and Little Johnny build forts and we put Legos together and make guns and we play gun fights, right? We're doing. So if I'm basing everything off doing, then if my way of showing you affection is one, having sex, right? Two, I'm going to wash your car. I'm going to put some gas in there. I'm going to bring the money home. I'm going to bring the groceries home. I'm going to give you a massage. I'm going to light some candles. I'm going to do for you, right? But what a woman needs is your words. How are you feeling? How was your day? What do you need? Do you like what I said? Do you like what all of these different things? Do I look nice? They need to hear it. We just want to do it. But when we have to and when we're forced to talk, then that's when it becomes uncomfortable for men to want to do that because that's not the language we naturally speak. We have to learn how to do that language, to speak that language. And then for women, women are often forced, especially single mothers, are often forced to be doers, and it becomes less talking. So it's like roles are reversed.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing, man. Um, we were just emotionally out of whack. We're in the wrong order, right? So we're so focused on being a doing and not a being. We were never given the luxury of just being. By a certain age, I remember my dad Saturday mornings, he wasn't sleeping in no more. Come outside with me. It's time to do this yard work. My
Yep.
dad made sure I was at work, and I appreciate him for that because it made me a hard worker. But at the same time, I remember waking up in those mornings and I'm like, man, I'm just tired. Can I just rest?
No.
And expressing them emotions like, Dad, I'm tired. Get up, son. We're going to do this work. I don't care about none of that. Man, got to get up. Man, got to work. And so you're conditioned from an early age to deprive yourself of your emotions and to operate in spite of them rather than understanding how to bask in them, how to feel in them, and how to actually be present in your emotions. Um, and then you have to spend your adult years trying to relearn that, trying to go back to these childhood moments and realizing, like, dang, I ain't felt emotion since I was 7 years old.
Yeah.
And this particular circumstance happened, and I realized that it wasn't safe for me to be here. So, it's tough for men. Like I remember so many times the way that I saw things growing up was sit back, my mom, my sister, sit back, let the man handle it. And my dad may be going to take care of it, but he bringing me with him. Come
Yeah.
on, because you need to see this, right? And I think we can appreciate those roles, right? We can appreciate the fact that men want to take this role of taking care of a lot of things tangibly and with actions. But it's not appreciated when a man just comes in and he's sentimental, and when
Yeah.
a man comes in and he's gentle, and a man comes in and he's caring without having to do something, just because his presence and his spirit is that. Um, and so I think that when you reinforce it and you validate it, men can get that way, because all we really want is praise. All that's all men really want. All we want is praise and admiration, and to know that we're valued. And so I honestly, and I've said this to Rex before, I believe women can create truly, like, in their man, I hate to say it, you kind of manipulate your man if you start praising the actions that you want, bro. I'm gonna be real, and y'all can disagree with me, but if you tell me like, oh my god, babe, it's so sexy when you do this particular thing, I bet I do it every day. I'm just saying, but yeah, those are my thoughts.
I like that. What about you, Coach?
I love it. So one of the things that I was thinking about was I had to write it down so I didn't forget it, but I teach and coach this thing called the even exchange. And Second Corinthians chapter 12, verse 9 says, and he said unto me, my grace is sufficient for thee, for my strength is made perfect in weakness.
Yeah.
And when I think about the even exchange and I think about Paul, who's the writer of the Second Corinthians, I think about when we are wanting to grow, right? We talked about being coachable earlier. And so when growing, where you only see true growth when your weakness is now strengthened. You don't see the same level of growth when your strength is mastered, right? So if you're going to grow in strength, that means you have to focus on the weakness. So if the weakness is for the man is the speaking of him giving the praise he wants to receive. Come on, somebody, because a woman only gives you back what you put inside of her.
Yeah.
You put a baby, you put a seed, she gave you a baby.
Yeah.
So if you want the praise, you have to be able to give it into her, because that's a form of leadership. And then you think about the woman, because a man is more of what you talked about, Rex. How can I help you? What can we build together? We were designed that Genesis 2:22 when he created us as a helpmate.
Yeah.
But you got to have something to help,
Yeah.
which is why you've got to have purpose. If you ain't got purpose, you don't need no mate.
Yeah.
Because
No
she
fact.
can't help nuts. She can't help do anything, right? So they can't be side to side intimacy.
Yeah.
No, literally.
But then that opens up her coming up under you and serving, which is connected to submission, which is connected to surrender. So we talk about this being actually a beautiful, I call it the even exchange model, because we're both strengthening each other in an area that the other person is stronger at, and maybe the other person is weaker at.
Man, that's amazing actually. And it reminds me of a quote that I heard in Bible study. And it said, a godly marriage multiplies your strengths and divides your weaknesses. But a bad marriage multiplies your weaknesses and divides your strengths.
That's good.
So, and that's no, you can have the even exchange in the bad way or the good way, and it's your choice. And if you're listening to this and you want to figure out how you can make a better even exchange, there's three things that you can do. Thing number one, you can lock in with Lauren's couples webinar tomorrow. Thing number two, you can book a session with me personally, and we can knock this bad boy out on an individual level or on a relational level. And then thing number three, you can even go with my boy Miles. You know what I'm saying? Because we're all here to help you develop. We're all here to help you sharpen your axe. We're all here to help you shed light on your weaknesses, so your weaknesses don't keep you from falling and keep you from having the love and having the communication, having the relationship that you really want.
Perfect, man.
Yeah.
This was amazing, guys. This was amazing. That was the end of part 2, guys, of Misconnect, Creating Disconnect, right? So excited to be moving forward with these episodes every single Tuesday. Like Rex just said, make sure you register for the Transforming Conflict into Connection free webinar that's going on tomorrow. Coach Lauren is going to be doing this for the couples. It's about to be amazing. So make sure you sign up so that you guys can get some true value and growth and take your relationship to the next level. We're looking forward to these lives every single week. If anybody has anything else to add, please say so now.
I just saw, I don't know if we have a few seconds before our Instagram cuts us, but I saw a question come in. Did you guys want to answer it?
Yeah, we can.
So we had a question come in. Purposeful Blends said, what's an example of sacrificial love in a relationship?
Everything.
Bro. Hey, I bet me and Rex do this all day.
Hey,
look.
Off the top of my head, being able to sacrifice your ego, being able to sacrifice your pride, being able to sacrifice some money. Typically when as a man, when you go eat by yourself, you may pay $15 to $25, right? But when you go with your lady, it's gonna cost you double, sometimes triple. That's a
Double.
sacrifice, right? When it comes to sleep, sometimes if something needs to be done and your partner's on the side of the road without some gas and it's 1 a.m. and you got to work at 5 a.m. Sometimes you got to sacrifice some sleep to go make that happen. Sometimes you got to miss some stuff because your partner may be needing you, especially as a father or just as a husband. Sacrifice also means being able to sacrifice your old habits, your old ways, your old beliefs in order to come together and do what's conducive to make the marriage work, to make the relationship work, right? So that's just a few examples on my end off the top of my head.
Man, I'm gonna sum it up like this: when you sacrifice self for the greater good of the team,
Right.
right? And to help with this mindset, I need you to picture yourself as being like on a football team and realizing that like you and your partner are not two different teams playing each other. You like the offensive coordinator sometimes, and she like the defensive coordinator. And sometimes she the offensive coordinator, sometimes you the defensive coordinator. You have to play complementary football in order for your team to win, right? If your offense is always scoring too quick and too focused on what they're doing, they don't give the defense enough time to rest. Then guess what? The defense is going to get picked apart, and y'all just going to be in a shootout all the time. If the defense can't keep the offense on the field because they keep getting run through, the offense don't have enough chances to score. You have to work together, right? Realize that you are on a team with your partner. And I promise you, sacrifice becomes a lot easier because you don't look at it as if I'm really losing something. Everything that I'm giving up in this moment returns to me tenfold in another moment later on,
Yeah.
right? Like I'm only just doing my job because right now this is my time to do my part. Like I have to put a little bit extra right now. But there's gonna be a time as a man when you working on some project and the vision that you're trying to bring out, you just can't put it together.
Yeah.
She's gonna come in, she's gonna give you the value that's gonna take something that would have sold $10,000 and now it's $100,000 because she
Yeah.
came in with her input. And it's vice versa. So just recognize that you're on the team together, and you'll stop looking at sacrifices as something that like I'm giving it up and I'll never get back. And you start looking at it as deposits, right? Investments, if you will, right? When you invest, technically you're sacrificing money in that moment. You go buy some shoes or whatever you want, but you know that on the back end, it's going to pay you so much greater in return.
Yep.
So that's how I want you to look at it. And it really starts with your sacrifice by submitting yourself to God. Once you get in line with the Lord, it becomes so much easier because the Lord will start to show you the ways in your relationship that you can be in accordance with what he wants you to be as a husband and as a partner. He's showing you like, yo, okay, this is an example of how I need you to show up. So that's what I would tell you, bro. That's what I would tell you.
That's good.
No, that was fire. I was ended right here. I had to write the quote down. It's not giving. It's not that you're giving up. Is that you're giving up something that you never want to return back to. Which one would you rather?
Yeah.
The interest plus the principal, or just the principal?
Literally.
Yep.
Yeah. It was like, and you think about that even in business when we're hiring. I think about how much money is investing in this tool, this person, this what have you going to bring me, not what is it costing me. So when
Yeah.
we think about sacrifice, we think about cost. When we think about investment, we think about return. So what am I going to get back? How much am I going to gain from this? Stop looking at it with this negative viewpoint because listen, that stuff wasn't worth nothing, no way. That
Exactly.
little chicken head girl wasn't worth nothing.
Yep. But what's the key? What's the key to that, coach? You got to pick the right investment vehicle, right? So it got to be the right person. If you with the wrong person, then yes, them sacrifices, they're not coming back around. We done all been with leeches at some point in our life. People that you pour into and they just take, and never give. So understand that. And you'll know very simply as the man, step up, start pouring in, see if it comes back around. It comes back around, okay, that's a good sign of the type of person that you with. But if you pouring, and you're never getting anything poured back into you, you're with a leech, brother. And that means that's the wrong thing to be sacrificing for, and you need to remove yourself.
Couldn't be said nothing better than that.
That part. Drop Miles Cash App right now. Is there one?
Is there one?
The doors of the church are open.
There might be one today.
There may be one.
Well, all right, y'all. We appreciate you so much for joining in today to the call. We'll be back next Tuesday. Make sure you register for the webinar tomorrow, the couples webinar tomorrow. Go to Coach Lauren's bio. It'll be there. Sign up quick, easy. And you guys are going to have a great time on that webinar. Can't wait to see this impact. And we will be back next Tuesday at 8 o'clock, guys. Peace.
Peace.